Hi, everyone. It's Wamite, founder and host of Career Safari and the Career Safari podcast. I am doing something a little bit different right now, which is a one-on-one episode, just me and you. And it's not something I do very often, but we are coming up on season 3 of the podcast. It's about to be released, and I know I've been gone for a while, so I wanted to use this time together to just reacclimate you to me or introduce myself to those who are listening for the first time. And I want to do something special, something I've been dying to do for a while, which is actually reflecting and sharing some lessons I've learned along the way from the women that I've interviewed over the last couple of years. So that's what we're going to do today. And I hope that you get familiar with me, familiar with what I do, and you come back and listen to what's happening next season, which is being released shortly. So a little bit about myself. I started Career Safari in 2018, 2017-ish. It's been a while. I was in a point in my career where I was really questioning, what the heck am I doing? I was doing international development for a while, and I felt a little bit lost because I knew that's not what I wanted to get into anymore. And because of the work I was doing, I was traveling around the world. I was really grateful to have met so many different women in different types of fields, that I was in these intimate conversations with them about, what did you do when you were lost? Or how did you get here? Because I was craving some mentorship and advice and guidance and hope. And I found it in those stories. And I would come back home and talk to friends about some of the things that I heard. Then it became like, why don't I create a platform to actually uplift the stories of the women that I meet, of the cool adventures I hear they go on, and that's how Career Safari came to be all these years later. I'm no longer in international development. I'm now in tech. That was a part of the pivot that I made. Also, you'll hear in the name Career Safari. Safari is a Swahili word. My family's originally from Kenya. I was born and raised in the US, but the safari is a nod to my Kenyan roots. So you'll hear me kind of talk about that. Now, enough about me. Let's get into the big topic for today's episode, this reintroduction or introduction episode. And it's all about recapping my favorite moments of season 2. I interviewed 9 torchbearers last season, and something I get asked a lot is, what is your favorite episode, or what is your favorite woman that you featured? And I really don't know. I really don't have an answer, or I might have an answer that day. And that's because of something that I'm going through personally, and I remember that person's story. But I do think there's a little something that you can take away from each episode. That's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to talk about some of the women, or all of the women that I featured last season, and give you at least what I remember from their story, what I took away from their stories. So that's the goal for today. 9 women. Let's go. If you're watching this on YouTube, I stole my dad's handy dandy hat right here many, many years ago, and now I'm going to use it. I put everyone's name in a paper, cut it up, and I threw it in my dad's hat, and I'm going to pick a name randomly, and I'm going to think about what I took from their careers. Hopefully you get a taste of who I am, what I'm all about, what Career Safari is all about, and come back and hear more. All right, let's do this. Who's up first? See, the first one up is Janine. I haven't met Janine, but occasionally I meet some of the women I feature randomly or planned. But Janine, I have not had the opportunity to meet. Oh, her story really went there. She talked a lot about narcissistic abuse. She's an author, an entrepreneur, has an HR background. There's a lot in her story. But what I remember and take away the most at this moment is, about rediscovering your passions and redirecting your energy. As I mentioned, Janine talked about being in a narcissistic abusive relationship and how that sucked up a lot of her time and her energy. And once she was able to walk away from it, how she was able to rediscover passions, find more energy for herself to do new things. And that just, I take away from that, letting go of things that are no longer serving you, things that honestly could be harming you. And then how the world works, it gives you back all that energy and allows you to discover new things about yourself and put better things out there in the world. So thanks Janine for that lesson. And here's a clip from that episode so you can learn more about her journey.
And by the age of 12, I started to write my poetry book. But in the 90s, we didn't have the same accessibility as we do now. And I was very clear with my parents, I don't want to go through a traditional publishing company because I don't want anyone to take royalties or to have the rights over my work.
Wait, how old were you when you said that?
I was about 12 or 13.
Girl.
I was already an entrepreneur.
You were born into this.
Yeah. So I started to work with a coach, and I would say by the age of 17-ish, she started to help me to self-publish my book. But I was so afraid, and I didn't think that I was a good writer, and I also did not think that I would have the support of friends and family. So I put my book down for 17 years. And yeah, and I didn't publish my book until I was like 25, maybe.
So you took yourself, which applaud for whoever, applaud teenage Janine and preteen Janine for taking you that far, but you went all the way to the point of talking to publishers. You wrote the entire poetry book, and then you did not click publish. You did not say publish.
I even copyrighted the book. The book was copywritten. The only thing I needed to do was click submit, and I wouldn't do it.
Oh my. So you had that hovering there for what? It sounded like almost 10 years? Almost.
Well, since I was about 12 to 25, 13, 14 years, I don't know. Yeah.
So it was there, looking at you like a blinking, like red light. And you would just ignore that feeling. You moved on to do the career stuff. Like what did you do in that time period with that? You just kind of just had it there?
Like literally, the book was printed, copyrighted. I had the certificate and everything, and I had it on my dining room table, and it would sit there for years. And I would like pick it up, and I'm like, okay, well, maybe if I make it perfect. So I would like fix it and then send it to copyright again, and then put it down for another year. And I would do that over and over. And in the meantime, I was building my career. I was in HR. I also did a little bit of academic advising for a university. And it was cool because I would go to work, and during my lunch break, everyone knew that I was writing a book. I would be writing poetry, I would be writing, all sorts of stuff, but I never did anything with it. So for years, I would just talk about it. I'm going to be out there, and people are like, okay, yeah, crazy.
Kind of like I have my own podcast. People like flee. They're like, oh no, I'm like, it's not one of those. But, and then what made you finally click submit on your first book?
Honestly, I was in a unfulfilled relationship with someone that was very I felt like I was dragging them to want to be successful constantly, like, come on, let's do this. I was constantly trying to build this person up, and it was draining. And I was at a fork in the road of like, I can continue to be with this person and continue to have to drag them to where I want to be. Or I could just go on this side of the fork in the road and do my own thing. And then once I broke up with them, I just went all in. I opened up my business, and within like 4 to 5 months, I published my book. I had a book launch event. I started coaching people. It just took off.
Okay. That's Janine. I guess it didn't say, okay, I will share what I took away from the story, and then we will actually play it so you can hear it directly from that torchbearer's mouth as well. All right. Next one. I shouldn't look. Let me not look. Next person is Amanda. I have not met Amanda either. Amanda is a powerhouse. She was a young government leader in her county in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Twin Cities. She did some powerful and amazing things so early in her career. And we had a really good conversation about leadership during her episode. But what I took away from hers is advocating and fighting to be at the table. Like I said, she was a young leader, and she still is. But even when you have the title, especially when you're young, Black, brown, Asian woman. Even with the title, people are still like, why should you be here? Or where's your manager at? Those things, you still get those things even though you have the title. And she talked about, even though she had this position of authority, she still had to advocate and fight to be at the table she was sitting at so she could be the decision maker that she was appointed to be. And that the title didn't automatically bring her power or money. Although sometimes it might unlock some doors, you still have to unfortunately fight for that when you are, like I said, a young woman of a different nationality than people are used to. So that's what I took away from her episode, and she did it, and she was so candid about that experience. So here's more of Amanda sharing about that phase of her journey.
What I learned from that experience, though, was that I think is important and that can transcend any issue that you're working on. I still consider myself a young person and a young woman, and I was even younger. Like, this was a few years ago that we did this work. I had to fight and advocate to be at the table. It wasn't yeah, Amanda, come join us. And I had to advocate and fight. And there were moments during that work where nobody came out and said this to me, but I could tell by maybe not being invited to certain things or not being at the table for certain things or have the ability to decide certain things, that maybe some folks didn't recognize my leadership in that space.
Even
And
as
I
a
think
co-lead, you had that challenge?
even as a co-lead, even as having Hennepin County like behind me, right? Saying that I'm the representative in this space, even then. And I think that it's so important to bring up because, again, to who we're talking to, right? Like to you, whoever is listening right now, and especially if you do identify as a young person or as a woman of color, like I had to know who I was. Like I had to know what I brought to the table. I had to know what I was capable of, right? And I had to know that, like, I bring value, I bring perspective, and I bring relationships to this. I may not have years of experience like some people. I may not have all the political leverage in the world, but I know who does, and I know how to communicate with them, right? And I know how to leverage this other person's resources. And so that was important for me mentally to know, like, even though I felt like I was being, again, not recognized or acknowledged for what I bring to the table, I had to remember who I was. Again, like that journey back to me, right? And that is a theme that continues to like play itself out in my career. And again, like being so solid and grounded and remembering like who am I? How do I show up in this space? So that was actually a really big challenge personally doing that work. Because we had done that work almost 2 years before the actual Super Bowl. So um there were moments of just like remembering my voice, remembering my power, and bringing that back and making sure I fought to have a seat at that table.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. I hope you all are liking this. Man, elected officials, I don't know how they do it sometimes, but I'm grateful. Oh, I shouldn't look. I'm not looking. I'm going through the hat for another name. Oh, man, Amrutha, her work is probably in high gear right now. She is a lawyer that works with detainees in the U.S., undocumented workers that are in the U.S. right now. And if you know what's going on politically, which most people do, you know there's a lot of ICE movement happening, and it's hurting and changing a lot of lives and families. So Amrutha, wherever you are, sending good vibes your way. So speaking along those things, when I think about Amrutha's journey, she talked about like being and like interviewing her clients that are facing trial or detained for not legally being in the U.S. What I take away from her story is how someone's accusations or legal history doesn't define who they are, and how her experience being on the other side of these conversations and learning about the stories of her clients really changed her perspective on how she even reads news stories or makes assumptions about people who are in legal situations. So here's Amrutha sharing more about that.
It really changes the way that you see humanity when you've been in the shoes of being a public defender or having any role where you've really gotten to know people in some of their scariest, most vulnerable moments. I think one lesson that you learn very quickly is that everyone has a story. Like, it's very easy for people to hear that someone's accused of a crime, and all of a sudden that accusation becomes the thing that defines them. You know, oh, they're a burglar. Oh, they're, a murderer. And like, that is the accusation that like is the way that people describe them. But humans are so complicated and we have so many layers, and it is a really humbling and fascinating experience to sit across from someone and be trusted to learn their full life story. And you will quickly learn all of the things that have happened to them that led them to being in the position that they're in now, that makes them your client. It's far more than what is captured in their legal case file or in the statements made by the prosecution. I mean, these are people who have had very challenging, very difficult life circumstances that have, in some ways, defied the odds by getting to the position that they were in, whether it be with their jobs or with their families. But ultimately, there's a lot more to them than just the crime that they're accused with. And so I think that gives you a lot of perspective, when you're looking at someone who maybe says something that you don't agree with, or who does something that you don't agree with, or anything. It's just always like knowing that perspective of there's so much more to the story than this one little, kind of blip that you're seeing.
Thank you, Amrutha. Again, sending great vibes your way. Keep fighting the fight. All right, next one. I hope y'all liking this. Eyes closed, hands in hat. Who am I going to talk about next? Natalie. I have met Natalie once or twice. Anyhow, Natalie is just energetic. She's a community builder, a connector, a brilliant and lovely person. So hi, Natalie. So going along like with the theme this year, what I take away from Natalie's episode today is risk taking. She talked about walking away from the healthcare world after she really wanted to pour herself in that and help change like the healthcare industry, and when she decided to walk away. So yeah, I think that's what I remember from her story. Just accepting that sometimes this is not the right moment for you to be in a particular job or particular industry. And even though she's not in the industry anymore, there are many things she's doing that are still helping to achieve her mission and achieve her goal. Yeah, here is Natalie in her own words.
The whole reason I wanted to get into healthcare was to help people. And that was my thing. And I finally got okay with the fact that I don't have to have hands-on healthcare to still help people. I don't have to be in the health world to still help people, but using my skills and abilities to support other businesses who will then have a bigger, broader audience and reach and impact. That for me was like, I'm actually doing more by working smaller and not at a larger scale, to still help people, or to still, community health, environmental health, whatever it might be in that health and wellness space. I'm still doing it from a variety of different perspectives.
Was it difficult to walk away from the healthcare space?
Yes and no. When you work in trauma, I think we all hit this pivotal moment of, can we do this long term? And granted, I had gone from like working, on the streets to working in a level 1 trauma center in the ICU, which differing levels of stress, right? But yeah, I knew that I didn't want to keep working that way. And so that was for me the pivotal turning point of like, I don't want to see the same people in here. So how can I help them not be here?
Ooh, there's a lot there. So by working that way, you mean working in a naturally traumatic environment, or you're talking about like the culture?
In a system that's truly broken.
Thank you, Natalie. All right, next person. Eyes closed, hand in hat. Christine. I have met Christine, and she's actually become a great friend of mine after this interview years later. So really interesting how life works. So for Dr. Christine, oh man, Christine, even in real life, she's this way. And I know she wouldn't mind me saying this. She is clear about what she wants to accomplish in this world. And that is something I'm in awe of. She took some time, I think it was during COVID, and just really got clear about what impact she wanted to make in this world. And that's a big question that we all struggle with at times, especially during COVID when a lot of us, everyone was really pausing. It made you really ask yourself bold questions, and she had to ask herself that. And she got clear. So not only does she knows what she's about, she knows her capabilities, and she's locked in and focused on trying to accomplish what she can with the time God is giving her. So thank you, Christine, for that reminder. And here is Dr. Christine in her own words.
So what impact do you hope to make?
Yeah, so really, like, my big picture mission is quite clear to me. In the past 2 to 3 years, I really have sat down with myself and said, hey, okay, you're doing stuff, but like, what is the impact I hope to make in the world, right? And so my big four are contributing to advancing equity around non-communicable disease care in Africa. I believe, like others have said, they're the social justice issue of our time. There's no reason why somebody should not have their hypertension at least diagnosed, or at least know what it is, especially when it's disproportionately affecting Black and Brown people, and a majority of deaths are actually occurring in the African context from really a treatable disease. So NCD equity, especially for the African continent, is number one. Number two, gender equity, especially in academia, but gender equity in health more generally. And advancing the research science or quality of Africa science in terms of, number one, increasing the number of Africans that are doing research, and also the quality of the research that's being done. So it's like bias for us, because just because a large cohort study has been done in the US, 30 years ago, and we're using that data to set guidelines that then affect Africans, doesn't necessarily mean, or other folks in other places outside of the US, other cultural contexts, doesn't necessarily mean that data is relevant to us or generalizable to us. And so increasing the 4S bias research and increasing that pipeline. So
yeah. So now I'm curious then, because you talked about your mission, and it sounded like you took some time to like reflect on like you're doing a lot of great things. You felt that, but then you wanted to like really get clear about like what it is, what type of impact you want to make. So did this happen during that COVID-19 experience?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I was kind of getting to that early to mid-career point anyway, where you're kind of one is kind of reflecting on, okay, like, what is my like legacy, for lack of a better term? What is the impact I hope to make? But I think COVID really helped to catalyze that, and just be like, I had all this time to think, and like, am I doing the right thing? Am I making my goal, making my impact? What is my impact anyway? So I definitely think it helped with that, for better or worse.
Okay. Next up, hand in hat. Oh, Gila. Gila. You see it every time. This is why it's hard when people say, what's your favorite torchbearer? What's your favorite story? Like each one, I'm like, oh, yeah, that one. Yeah. But Hila is, she's remarkable. She is one of the few people in this world, few women especially, and unfortunately it's a few women only, that have been able to turn their startup into a publicly traded company. And she has done this in Israel. So there's a lot you could tell you about her journey. There's so much she's accomplished. She's now like a tech entrepreneur, a mentor. She's doing so many incredible things. But when I think about her story, I think about her being very candid about being a mom and an entrepreneur. She talks about being pregnant while raising money for her company, and, just the challenges around if she's doing the right thing, what do people think, and how she even turned that into part of her journey after she founded White Smoke, which was her company. And now she's empowering women who are pregnant or mothers, and she's really focusing on that audience about how to help them become entrepreneurs or stay entrepreneurs. So here's what Hila's doing. You were 9 months pregnant?
I was 9 months pregnant. I was raising money, and I also sold my company at one stage when I had really like a 2-week-old baby. I'm a great believer that your family needs to be part of your life. Not everyone can do it, and not everyone has to do it. And it's 100% okay if you don't do it. But if you want to do it, we're here to make sure that the glass ceiling doesn't exist so that you can really go ahead and do these things. And for me, this was my mission. I looked after my company. I wanted to see my company grow. And so I saw my kids as part of my life.
So you didn't want to be the type of CEO, founder, and mother where you would have separate lives. You wanted it all to come together somehow.
Yes, I believe a lot of moms and mom entrepreneurs want to do that. You know, when we started our first program in Google called Campus for Moms, where moms on maternity leave actually come with their babies and start their startups, everyone said to me, "What a stupid idea," because moms want to be moms. And when they go back home, then they want to be CEOs. And I thought, hey, let's give it a chance. Maybe there's more crazy moms like me who want to put everything together. And we started this here in Israel. We did 7 cycles in Tel Aviv, and this became a global program. And the reason I say this is because there were a lot of moms like me who wanted to, at the same time, have the cake and eat it, and do that. And that became a very successful story.
Thanks, Hila. And I don't think I was really candid. What I remember and took away from her story was that, yes, you can be a mom and an entrepreneur. People might look at you crazy. It does, you got to stick with your gut, and you trust yourself a little bit. Not a little bit, a whole lot. You have to trust yourself a whole lot, or people are going to throw you any which way. And how the very thing that people might make fun of you or challenge you on might be the avenue and lane for you to actually help people who are in similar situations. So that is what I took away from Hila's story. All right, next. Tiffany. Tiffany is now married and has a child on the way, or maybe she's already had the baby. But congratulations, Tiffany, on everything you've accomplished. I have met Tiffany, actually, and she is as effervescent and clear-minded as you would expect, and gorgeous and all those things. But, oh man, Tiffany talks a lot about her upbringing in Detroit and her realizing that everything she's doing, everything that she's accomplished in this life, she's a PhD, that she is her ancestors' wildest dreams. And I take away the beauty of accepting and appreciating all the hard work your ancestors and your family put into you being who you are today. So yeah, it's just really the moments where she talks about understanding her family's legacy and seeing how much they paved the way for her and her appreciation of that. That's what I take away from Tiffany, and also to look fabulous at all times. Right. All right. Here's Tiffany.
Yeah, like my grandmother, I would say that she was born in Yazoo City, Mississippi. So that is Mississippi Delta, like for real, back alleywood type place. And my grandfather was from Memphis, and they made their trek up to Detroit. So for my grandfather to work at the plant. Now, yes, I talk good things about the plant, that they're saying, oh, you can get paid well, but it was also very dangerous because at that point, it was no standards. You're just cranking out stuff. You're building all this stuff. They didn't necessarily have all these great protections in the plant. So you would see a lot of our elders, you would look, some of their fingers were kind of like nipped off and stuff, because they worked at the plant.
Wow.
And it wasn't the most it wasn't the most glorious place to work. It was actually very dangerous very early on. But my grandmother, didn't really have the opportunity to go to school. So me getting my doctorate is like something that is truly, when Maya Angelou says, I am the product of my ancestors' wildest dreams, like that really truly is it for me, because she didn't go beyond like a 5th grade education. When you work in the South, when you live in the South, you were a farmer, you were a sharecropper, you're helping your family pick cotton, do all these other things. You were a farmer. So you didn't really get to go to school. And if you did go to school, it was miles away. So she always talked about, I walked all these miles to go to school. And I mean, we'd be like, what? Like, we couldn't believe it. But it was very true. The opportunity to go to school just was not there for Black people. And Black women got married much earlier, started producing kids much earlier. So you didn't get that opportunity, build a career. What's that? Like you made money watching people's kids, cooking, or maybe being a seamstress, like sewing people's clothes and stuff. So it wasn't like, oh, I have this big fancy career. So I think my family history and like where I am right now, I know this is something that they would have never dreamed, but they always instill education. They probably wouldn't thought that I could have done this. Like the opportunity would be there for me, but it is truly a huge full circle moment of looking at my family tree and how far I've been able to go.
Okay. Next. I don't know. I'm closing my eyes. Emily Citrian. Emily actually went on to found her own company. Shortly after our interview, she got laid off and she founded her own company and she's kicking butt. But we have a lot of similarities because both her and I are in tech, customer success professionals. So we talked a lot about our careers, and she also has a book around being a millennial manager. So we talked about that. And I remember we had a really good conversation around the broken rung. And if you don't know what the broken rung is, I think it was Lean In put out a report on like why so many women don't or not given access to senior leadership positions in the corporate world. And the idea is that it's because women don't get first line manager roles. So if you think about your career ladder, that first rung around just being a manager of people, forget being a manager of managers and managers of and all that stuff, because women are not given the opportunity to even be a first line manager, therefore they're blocked out of, future considerations for other leadership opportunities and so on and so forth. So we talked about this corporate world and the ways that women are locked out and how to maneuver in those spaces, when to move laterally, when to walk away. Basically how to recognize the game, recognize what obstacles are ahead of you, and then hopefully break the damn wheel when you get an opportunity to. Shout out to Game of Thrones. But yeah, that's what I remember from my conversation with Emily. Here is our conversation in her own words.
But can you kind of give your perspective about, let's say they are within the company, what do you see as the obstacles for women and especially women of color to being promoted to those people management roles?
So I think it's threefold. One, I talked about one of the riskiest decisions you're going to make as a people manager is who you hire. If you are a manager of managers, the riskiest decision you're going to make is who you promote to being a manager. And it is just true that promoting somebody into a first-time manager role from within is an inherently riskier decision than bringing somebody in from the outside who has done it. Because if you've got the wrong person as a manager, it is nearly impossible to unwind that. And it can take years. It can take years to undo a bad managing. So you are kind of incented to not do it because you're putting so much on the line and so much pressure on that person to deliver that you're not really optimized to make that decision. So I think this is a failure of corporate structure in that nurturing people for the first line manager track so that you've got a good solid bench of people is a big miss. And I think that's correctable. I think it's solvable. Like put people in manager tracks, teach them some of the fundamentals. So when the time comes, like it's not as risky. You've got people that, are close to it. The second is what makes somebody a competitive and compelling case for a first-time manager role is being given a lot of micro opportunities to do that already. And so I think this is where a lot of that unconscious bias probably comes in, is like, let's say we've got a new hire and we need somebody to coach that new hire. And so this is kind of a management light opportunity. And so are people getting picked and asked to do that are, totally represented? Okay, now we've got a cross-functional opportunity and we've got some cross-functional work group and we need somebody to step up and lead the charge and go talk to so-and-so in another department. And is everybody given the opportunity to do that? So it's a lot of those. And if you get to the point where, you're ready to hire a manager and you're looking at, okay, what have people done that shows me that they're ready? You're going to probably see some segregation there, simply because people haven't been picked, or they haven't been raising their hands, and we need, people to raise their hands and that sort of thing too. And then the third is mentorship. I think that if you can't see somebody that looks like you, that has a similar background to you in that role, and that can mentor you to becoming that, you're just less likely to have that road paved for you. It's hard to be the first one that's done that.
Yeah.
And so I think that this is also solvable too, is certainly there's women and people of color in management roles, but how do we formalize a mentorship structure so that there's access to that, of people that have a similar background that are trying to have that same career path. So I think those are some of the big hairy reasons why it's not happening. This is something I think about a lot. I'm curious. I want to do my part to solve it, and I think it's a little bit different for each type of group. But I think those are the big buckets of things that I see.
Yeah. And you said a lot there, but there's one thing that I really want to hone in on, is that trust factor. If whoever's in that hiring role, if they're hiring you if they're looking for a people manager and managing people, that's a costly role. And like you said, there's so much that is placed upon that person, and having a good hire, so that hiring manager is really looking for someone that they can trust. And if you're already sitting in the company, then there's people are making assessments about you every single day. And the first question, and this is just my perspective, is, can they trust you? Do they know that if they put something on you, they can trust you? And then that goes into your point about inherent bias. Have people been given opportunities to show themselves? What exactly is seen as valuable work? There's so many things that can go underneath that.
Okay. There is one more left. I know who it is. There's only one more, but I'll pull it out for nostalgia. Susan. Oh man, Susan did a little hully. I almost cried multiple times during the episode with Susan. She is a healer. She's a former educator. She's a therapist now. Like, she literally is a healer. And she talks about all her healing journey and all that stuff. But what did I take away? There are some people who make you step out of yourself and see like the greater movement of your life. Like, they touch you and all of a sudden you are able to like zoom out and take a breath. And that's what that interview felt like for me. And we had a really beautiful conversation about hope being born from possibilities, and the importance of hope in someone's life. And if you don't have hope, then what do you have? So yeah, I think I'll leave you all, or leave this segment on that.
Hope is a word that has been popping in all around me. And they say that hope is the boldest act of imagination that you can have. Hope is the boldest act of imagination that one can have.
I have gotten to this debate with someone before about hope, which is why I'm here smiling, because we got into that argument. If a person doesn't have hope, what do they have?
Exactly. And the hope is, it would be like the opposite of discouragement, of pessimism, and hope is not optimism. Hope is not born from optimism. It's born from possibilities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That things, like there's for good, there's for bad. But for good means that you are a higher human being. You are working on yourself. And you are looking at a person and seeing possibilities. So I told a client the other day, I said, just think of yourself as a rock, that inside there is a diamond. And we're all chiseling away to find that diamond. Or like Thich Nhat Hanh said, the Vietnamese Zen Buddhist who just passed. Human beings are like the waves. And one wave looks at another wave and says, oh, I'm more beautiful, or my race is better, or I feel inferior to you. But they all come from the same ocean. And it's fear. Oh, we're going towards the shore. What happens once we reach it? I'm afraid. Where do I go when this ends? I go back to the source. So, throughout my life, hope, which is my social compass, is I want to work so that I can connect with people and that I can learn from people. And possibly I can also share what I have experienced.
So I will close by saying thank you for joining, and that I hope that you take away something beautiful from each episode of Career Safari, just like I do. Buckle up, knuckle up. Season 3 is here. Again, I've already had many interviews. There's some women coming up. Each one has a remarkable story, from people in the music industry, from people who are doing work with like machinery, to people in the healthcare. Like there's a lot coming. But listen, because it's been a long time, that means I've had a lot of stories and people I've wanted to talk to. So I hope you enjoy it. Reach out to me at www.thecareersafari.com. Follow us on social media, YouTube to Spotify. We are here. I am Wamite, and season 3 coming soon. Thank y'all. Pass the torch.